Eragon couldn't forget her eyes, the imprisoned elven woman from his visions. Night after night, her screams echoed through his dreams. He saw the stone walls of her prison, heard the crack of whips, felt her suffering as if it were his own. And each time, a name slipped through the pain. Gilead. The city was real. The vision wasn't a dream, it was a connection. Somehow their fates were tied. Guided by instinct, Eragon, Saphira, and the wounded Braum arrived at Gilead under cover of night. The city was heavily guarded, and dark magic lingered in the air. Eragon left Saphira hidden in the woods and infiltrated the city, sneaking through alleys and tunnels until he found the fortress. Massive iron gates, tall black towers, and cries coming from the dungeons below. He fought his way in, using his sword and the few magic words he'd learned. Inside he found her, Arya, unconscious, beaten, held in chains. She was breathtaking even in pain, tall, proud, her ears pointed like a dagger's tip. Elven blood flowed through her. She had once been a warrior, now reduced to a prisoner. But time was short. Before he could escape, a shadow descended upon him, Durza the Shade. His skin pale as bone, his hair blood-red, and his eyes glowing like coals. A creature of pure darkness, bound by forbidden magic. Eragon tried to fight, but Durza was too powerful. With a single word, he shattered Eragon's sword and threw him across the cell. Pain roared through his body. Then Braum arrived. Despite his wounds, the old warrior charged in, hurling fire and steel. The battle was fierce, chaotic. Braum's sword flashed, spells burst in flame, and Durza roared in fury. But the Shade was too strong. With a scream, Durza plunged his blade into Braum's side. Saphira crashed through the wall. Blue flame raged. Eragon pulled Arya into the saddle, grabbed Braum, and flew into the night sky. The wind howled as Saphira carried them far from Gilead. They landed in the wilderness, miles away. There, under the cold stars, Braum lay dying. Blood soaked his cloak, his face pale, his breathing shallow. Eragon knelt beside him, tears in his eyes. Braum revealed the truth. He had once been a dragon rider. His dragon had been slain by Morzin, the last of the Forsworn. Since then, he had wandered the land, hiding, waiting, guarding the last hope, the egg that would hatch Saphira. He had trained Eragon not as a stranger, but as a rider passing the torch. I tried to prepare you for this. With one final breath, Braum's eyes dimmed. Eragon buried him beneath an ancient tree. Saphira touched the stone with her claw and whispered ancient magic. The grave turned to diamond, a glowing crystal tomb that sparkled under moonlight. A rider had fallen. A legend had begun. Arya awoke days later, weak and feverish. She revealed everything. She was an envoy of the Elven Queen, on a mission to deliver Saphira's egg to the Varden, the resistance hidden in the Beer Mountains. She had been ambushed by Durza and barely managed to send the egg away using magic. Now she urged Eragon to complete the journey. The Varden awaited him. But they would not last long without help. The journey to the Beer Mountains was perilous. They crossed deserts and rivers, battled wild beasts, and evaded Galbatorix's scouts. Arya grew stronger with time, though her scars remained. Eragon practiced his spells, guided by her elven knowledge. Saphira soared above, their bond growing deeper every day. They reached the Dwarven lands, an underground kingdom carved in stone. Towering halls, glowing crystals, ancient carvings on the walls. The dwarves allowed them passage but watched them with suspicion. Finally, they arrived at Farend Dur, the last bastion of the Free People. The Varden, a rebel army led by Ajihad, a stern warrior with a mind as sharp as his sword. He questioned Eragon's loyalty, tested him, grilled him for truth. But when Eragon showed the Gedway Ignatia on his palm, when Saphira landed in the courtyard with wings spread like thunder, silence fell. They knew. A new rider had come. Eragon was given rest. Training. A new sword forged by dwarven hands. It was crimson, etched with runes, and sang with magic. Arya stood beside him during each test, watching, advising, teaching him to fight not just with strength, but with wisdom. She shared the story of the elves, of the ancient pact between riders and dragons, and the meaning of the bond he now carried. For the first time, Eragon understood who he was becoming. Not just a warrior, a symbol of resistance, a rider reborn. But there was no time for peace. Far to the north, Galbatorix had heard whispers. His shade had been wounded. A rider lived. He would not allow rebellion. Durza returned, stronger, angrier. He led an army of Urgals, beastly, horned monsters bred for war. Thousands of them marched toward the Beer Mountains. Their goal, destroy the Varden and capture the rider. As the enemy closed in, the Varden prepared for war. Dwarves forged weapons. Elves sent scouts. Eragon trained harder than ever, sweat and blood soaking every hour. Arya gifted him an elven stone, an amplifier of energy, passed from queen to queen. "You are not ready," she said, "but ready you must be." The night before the battle, Eragon stood with Saphira atop a cliff, the wind swirling around them. He touched her scales, felt the strength in her wings, the courage in her heart. "We were chosen," he whispered. Saphira responded not with words, but with a low, rumbling growl, one of loyalty, of trust. The battle would begin at dawn. The first light of dawn spilled across the peaks of the Beer Mountains. Beneath the earth, inside the vast dwarven halls of Farend Dur, the Varden prepared for war. Every corridor echoed with the ring of swords being sharpened, the march of armored boots, the whisper of magic spells being readied. Tension hummed in the air. Everyone knew what was coming. An army of Urgles, twisted beasts with curling horns and endless rage, was marching toward the mountain with one purpose: wipe out the last hope of freedom. Eragon stood in the great hall, armored for the first time. His new sword rested on his hip, gleaming red and humming with energy. He was no longer the farm boy from Carvajal. He was the last free dragon rider, bonded to a creature of legend, and carrying the burden of 1,000 fallen warriors. Saphira stood behind him, her wings stretched to full height, scales shimmering in the torchlight. She was no longer the hidden hatchling. She was a queen of flame and flight. As the Urgles stormed through the outer tunnels, the Varden met them with steel and fire. Dwarves fought shoulder to shoulder. Human warriors held the line. Magic burst from staffs and blades as elven spells lit up the dark. Saphira took to the skies, breathing fire on the enemy from above. Eragon joined the front lines, cutting through Urgles with newfound strength and focus. His blade moved like lightning, guided by instinct and training. He spoke words of power in the ancient language, creating shields of energy and fireballs that shattered stone. But the battle was far from over. From deep within the tunnels, a cold wind blew. Durza had arrived. The shade stepped into the chamber like a phantom. His pale skin glowed red in the torchlight, and his eyes burned with fire. Wherever he walked, Urgles cleared a path. His sword floated behind him like a shadow. He raised a hand, and with a whisper, sent a wave of black fire crashing into the Varden's defenses. Warriors screamed. Walls cracked. Eragon turned. He knew what he had to do. He raced through the inner halls, drawing Durza away from the others. The shade followed, his laughter echoing through the stone. They reached the upper levels of the mountain, vast open ledges beneath the great dome of Farend Dur. High above, Saphira circled like a storm. Durza attacked first. His sword lashed out with unnatural speed. Eragon blocked, but the impact sent him flying. He rolled to his feet, summoned magic, and fired a blast of flame, but Durza absorbed it with a flick of his hand. The shade hurled him back again, this time smashing him into a pillar. Blood poured from Eragon's mouth. The pain was unbearable. But then, through the haze of agony, he heard Saphira's voice. "Get up!" He saw her diving, her wings slicing through the air. With all his strength, Eragon stood. Durza raised his sword for the final blow. Saphira crashed into the ledge, her claws slamming into the shade. The force sent them both tumbling. She roared, her body glowing with inner fire. Durza slashed her wing, grounding her. Eragon gripped his sword. He remembered Braum's final lesson. Magic is only as strong as your will. He whispered the ancient word, breezing. Flames burst from his blade. With a cry of fury, Eragon charged. He ducked Durza's blade, spun, and plunged his sword through the shade's heart. The air exploded in light and shadow. Durza screamed, an unearthly wail that shook the mountain. His body cracked and shattered like glass, vanishing into smoke. The battle below turned in an instant. The Urgles, once bound to Durza's dark magic, fell into confusion. The Varden surged forward, driving them back into the tunnels. Within minutes, the mountain fell silent. They had won. Saphira lay beside Eragon, wounded but alive. She licked his face gently, and he smiled weakly, his body trembling. Together, they had defeated a shade. Together, they had saved the last free people of Allegezia. Eragon awoke 3 days later in a healing chamber. The elves had tended to his wounds with spells and herbs. His back ached from a new scar, a mark left by Durza's magic. It pulsed with strange energy, a reminder that darkness had touched him, but not taken him. Arya stood beside his bed, quiet and strong. "You were brave," she said. "Not brave," Eragon whispered. "Just angry. You channeled it well." Arya told him that Galbatorix knew now, that the king had felt Dur's death and would come for him. He would not send a shade again. Next time it would be worse. Eragon sat up slowly, watching Saphira sleep at the foot of his bed. She had lost some scales, her wing was still healing, but her heart was untouched. She was proud of him. Adjihad entered the room, his face grave. He praised Eragon's courage, declared him a hero of the Varden, and offered him a place among their ranks. But Eragon shook his head. He wasn't ready. He needed training, knowledge, power. Adjihad nodded. Then go to the elves. They will show you what it means to be a rider. Arya gave him a scroll, an invitation to do Weldon Varden, the hidden forest city of the elves. There, masters of magic and ancient wisdom would teach him. There, he would discover who he truly was. The next morning, Saphira took flight again, carrying Eragon above the mountains. The sky stretched endlessly before them. He looked down at Farend Dur, now quiet. The fires had gone out. The people cheered as he passed. But he felt no triumph. Only purpose. He whispered to the wind. This is just the beginning. Saphira responded, her voice deep in his thoughts. Our path is long, little one, but we will fly it together. Far to the north, in the black tower of Uarubane, Galbatorix screamed. His shade was dead. A new rider had risen.